Hi folks, and welcome to part 2 of the video. What we're going to be looking at now is actually the 1941 map. I'm just going to kind of concentrate on one particular area. So when I started the game, what I do is I'm looking at the production screen here, and what jumps out at me is that the base value of oil for Japan at this moment in time is 3. Considering this is a naval combat game, um, and I'm using 43 oil per turn with all the ships that are out there, uh, within 3 or 4 turns I'm going to have no oil and my ships are going to be dead in the water. I've got 192 resources coming in and 2 strategic resources. Um, at this point in time, I have 120 merchant marines, and of the 120, I'm using 74 of them to deliver resources. And it looks like the resources I'm delivering are iron ore, because when I look at Japan itself, its base value is actually 3. So on the island, I can see the icon for the oil resource. So that's the base value that I'm seeing here. I haven't assigned any escorts here, but I'm going to assign them to the South China Sea, all 10 of them for full coverage. And the idea behind it is straightforward and simple. What I'm going to do in my first turn, and I'm just going to only show you a portion of it, one zoomed in area. I'm going to try to get as much oil as I can, so that this way I can try to stabilize my economy here. When I'm looking at this, I can see the resources that are supposed to be delivered, and what jumps out is no oil. I have 0 oil at this point in time. These are all the other resources that I see that are being actually imported. I own some and some by conquest. Let's take a look at a branch and just kind of review. So in an in-game situation here, so if I click on that, let's take a look at the top branch here. And when I look at it and put my cursor on the actual trade route here, I look at the bottom portion of my left side of my screen, and I see 55 resources are actually delivered. When I click away the units here, I see that Peking and these other resources here, well, that's 50 of them, plus another 15 is 65. So what's going on here? Well, if you remember part 1 of the video, anything that's conquered or resource captured is actually divided by 3. So when we look at the 10 20 20, sorry, the 20 10 10 10 here, we see this icon here. And this icon, when we take a look at it, means I actually own those resources. And because I own those resources, I get the full value of them. So that's the 20 10 10 10 here. But when I look at Peking here, I'm going to zoom in on my map here. I'm going to move it out of there. Out of center, when I click on the arrow, notice it centers Peking. Well, the idea behind it is that's been conquered. That's what that flag is. So I'm going to take this, divide it by 3, and then I'm going to end up with 5 resources. And that's exactly what you get here. No oil, but you get 5 resources delivered. So when you take a look at this branch, as I mentioned before, it's delivering 55 resources from port to port, then to the capital. And I know that the convoy routes are actually active here. This is the South China Sea that I've put my escorts in, but when I look at this route here, and put my cursor over here, if I look at the bottom portion of my screen, I can see that this portion is called the East China route. And then somewhere down the line, as I'm moving along here, right here, at this point here, anything beyond here is what's called the South China Sea route that I have. And you can see the amount of resources that are flowing on that portion as of yet. So that's basically what we were looking at from the part 1 video here of those things and how they're created. At the beginning of the game, you can already see that resources are being imported either through conquest or that you actually own them. Below that, and you can see with the arrows here, the green arrows, you can see the ports. I'm going to zoom in on the map here. So again, just like I mentioned before in part 1, if you click on the arrow, it'll take you to Saigon. If I put my cursor over it, it's a size 4 port. 4 times 20 is 80, so it's getting all the resources. Remember, the merchant shipping to ports are abstract units that are not counted within the merchant marines that you're using on the trade routes themselves. So keep that in mind. And they're abstract in nature. They're not physical units that you see on the board itself. You can purchase merchant marines and also escorts. And remember, these are used for trade and the trade route when they go on water here. on the tab that says support, and they're the bottom two here. And you can see here that you require 10 shipyards to build, and it costs you 100, and it'll be 180 days. And escorts will be one shipyard. It costs 40 production points and 210 days to build. So the problem that you have is that Japan has no oil. They're using 74 of the 120 shipping or ships that you have, merchant marines, and the only portion in the map that has a ton of oil just sitting around is right here in the Dutch East Indies. Since your base value is only 3, and because the scenario is set up in such a way that initial attacks are ready to go, what do I mean by that? Well, when you click on, there's an infantry unit on this one. I want to be able to move one operational point away, because I'm going to need an operational point to actually disembark or invade, so to speak. So what I want to be able to do is, as you can see, that the game has set up invasion points that are one away. So in other words, Japan is ready to strike in this scenario here. You can see it here that they're ready to strike here in Manila, or the Philippines, I should say. All over the map here, you've got different situations where they're ready to strike. Here you can strike on Rebel. I'm not going to worry about that too much here. It's just the way the game has been set up. The initial scenario has been set up. What I want to show you is how the game automatically sets up trade for you and tries to balance oil and resources, giving a little bit of an edge to the oil. So I don't have any aircraft here. So what I would do from a first turn is I would attack the Dutch East Indies here. Now, this is also part of the Dutch East Indies. How do I know that? Because when I stop my cursor here and I look at the bottom left part of my screen, it tells me that those hexes belong to the Dutch East Indies. The capital is Batavia. If I mispronounce it, I apologize. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to capture the capital right off the bat. I'm going to move in. With one operational point left, I'm going to disembark. And notice it's 6-to-1 odds. Now I got to guarantee this, so I'm going to come in here. Again, I'm going to disembark. I'm going to move forward one so that I can actually attack. Now, because I have a destroyer here, it should support me a little bit. I'm going to push down the shift key, and now I've got 9-to-1 odds instead of 6-to-1 odds. And yay! I'm going to move my sub in range here. I don't think it's going to do much. I was hoping it would react, and their ship flees. Now, basically, when the Allies start their turn, the Dutch East Indies have fallen. I've captured them. Now, when I look at this portion here, there's a boundary line here. When I look at this portion and look at the bottom left of my screen here, this belongs to the United Kingdom. So what I'm going to have to do is also invade those particular hexes to be able to capture them, and I'm going to go after a port. There's no troops there. And again, I take a look at this, and you can see that it's been set up for you for doing an initial invasion. I'm going to take the port first and come back to the port. And what I'm going to do in this situation is I'm going to take one of these values here, and I'm going to land here. Since the Japanese have quite a bit of landing ships here, and I'm going to capture their port. And let's see now what happens when I move forward the turn. Again, I don't want to worry about the other stuff. I just want to work on trade here and relate this to part 1 of the video. Now, what should happen is the AI has to do a little bit of thinking. So you can see the Dutch East Indies has surrendered. What will end up happening, I didn't move anything, so I might get trounced in certain portions, but that's okay. So the AI, once it's completed its turn, it's going to have to create other trade branches that now extend into the Dutch East Indies. Similar with the UK, but there's a problem. I only have 120 merchant ships. I used up 74 just to deliver the iron ore. So the computer is going to have to balance things out in a sense where it's going to have to turn around and say, okay, I need oil, so I'm going to try to get this much oil, and I need still iron ore. I'm going to try to get this much iron ore. According to Alvario, it usually tries to split it to a certain amount. Um, I'm never sure what to do about China. I'm going to play the Chinese scenario next, but you can see here the Dutch East Indies have surrendered, so that means that I now own it. That's awesome. I can now go to the Dutch East Indies, zoom in a bit, and I'm going to click on the actual trade, and you can see that it set up some trade. And this is all automatic. And when I place my cursor over it, I can see that the 12 oil is being traded. I can see that when I place my cursor in this spot here, 2 resources, which makes sense because the 1 oil is transported, and 5 divided by 3 is 1. Drop the decimal, so 2 resources will be. And over here, wow, 32. That's awesome. So now when I take a look at what I got here, I have 48 that are actually being shipped. So 48, if you think about it, it used to be 3 from the base resources. So that means 45 resources are being shipped in from the Dutch East Indies. I can check it here, and when I take a look at this, I can see here that the Dutch East Indies, I've got them all now, all the ones that are being shipped in here. And I can see also when I take a look at this, all 120 of my actual merchant marines are being used, and I don't have enough. So if I add up all these resources here, so again, if I add all of these up here, all the way up to the top of the ones numbers you don't see, they add up over 120. So I've got a bit of a problem here. So the computer had to adjust somehow, and what it did was, let's say if I look at this one, still bringing the resources over here, still 5 resources, that's good. 3, it had to adjust somewhere down the line to be able to handle the extra. Notice these resources were not shipped again because maybe the lack of merchant marines. Let's try it again and see whether or not the computer will readjust again, as I said, because that's what it does. It will set up the routes based off of a set of rules or instructions that have been programmed. Oil gets a bit of a preference here, so let's go into the next turn here and see whether or not the UK now opens up a little bit. Remember too, any kind of partisan activity will stop that resource from being transferred over to Tokyo. So let's see what they got. I haven't moved anything else, so the Allies at this moment have free reign to everything. And you can see now I've captured the UK ports. It's just a matter of expanding it if I want to. And the game automatically takes this abstraction away from the user, and that's okay. Okay, so let's see whether or not it's created another branch, because again, it needs to adjust for the amount of oil. Let me check if there's any damage. Okay, so this oil here is damaged, so if it's damaged by partisan, it won't be able to ship anything. Clicking on the route, you can see here that this oil here has been adjusted. So 9 resources are flowing through here. Only 5 are flowing through here. So again, you can see the computer is adjusting accordingly. So when you're looking at it, it's increased this to 57. Remember, 74 were initially kind of brought in here. So it's trying to bring the ratio close to almost 50-50 with regard to oil and resources being put in. In games, or the part that I kind of looked at, it seems to prefer oil over the iron ore resources, because I guess oil is more rare on the map, so it's adjusted accordingly. But you can see that from our point of view, if you want to check any of the resources that are being delivered, you can. So remember, this was a branch here. It used to be 55. Now only 53 are being delivered out of all of them. If I'm looking at this, there doesn't seem to be any kind of partisan activity that would be stopping the flow. So that means only 53 merchant marines had been assigned to this route, and 2 of the resources were left in the country here to waste. And unless we get more, and the total, we'd have to add these all up until we get all of those, because the merchants shipping is at a 1-to-1 ratio with resources. Until we add up all those numbers and get that value there, up there, we don't have enough merchant marines to ship all the resources. So the computer will adjust accordingly. So it used to do 45. Now this turn, subtracting 3 out of it, it's added 2 more. So now you're dealing with 55 from the point of view of a base sort of resources that were coming in. Again, we have the multiplier that we have to deal with production here, and I'm not going to do any calculations here, but you can see the previous turn it was 45 oil being brought in. Now subtract 3 from this and 54 oil is now being brought into the country. And again, when you look at these numbers here, this is what you're supposed to be getting. It's not actually what you're getting, it's supposedly what you're getting. So unless you go to the trade route itself, so for example, when I look at this, it's getting the full 32. When I look at this, notice it changed the route to go along rail and through Batavia this time. So when I go through this, I'm getting my 2 resources. When I'm looking at these, I'm getting my 12 resources. When I'm looking at this one, I'm getting 9 resources. So I'm getting my total resources for my oil. The only one that I'm not getting is this one. Let's try one more turn. Let's leave this unit here and let's see if it repairs. I'm just kind of curious to see this route open up. So I may cut this portion out of the video if it's too long. But again, the idea is straightforward and simple. It's automatically created for you. It's an abstraction, and it's something that you don't have to worry about. It happens in behind the scenes, so you can concentrate strategically on what needs to be done. Unfortunately, in this video here, since it's an early part of the war here, I can't show you, like I did in part 1, attacks, but what I've showed you in part 1 of the video on how to attack convoys either with air or with subs in raider mode. And you can do that with surface vessels too. I didn't show you with surface vessels, but you could put surface vessels in raider mode and place them also on convoy routes, and they will also be able to attack the convoy. I forgot to do that one. But other than that, there's really not much left to talk about trade other than it's done automatically for you. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I'll try to answer as best I can. What I want to be able to do is try to take a closer look at naval combat and see how it goes with regard to under the hood. I can't promise too much because, like I said, the calculations are all done under the hood. It looks like this was not repaired, so that when I go to click on this, this route will not be open. But this concludes this video. As you can see how trade works. Thank you again for watching. I appreciate it. And if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to leave them. Stay safe, everyone. Bye for now.